Hello, welcome back to the L1 show Links with Friends. Today's January 27th, and we're doing robot and nonsense stories because it is Friday.
And the robot section these days is almost all AI because that's where the world is going. We have ChatGPT changing everything. Now, it has been decided that ChatGPT cannot create works on its own. That is not allowed. But what if it just helps?
ChatGPT listed as author on research papers. Many scientists disapprove. You know what else scientists disapprove of? If you use ChatGPT and don't list it as a author on your research paper.
Worse.
Yeah, it's like, this is a scientist who's scared to death to do the wrong thing. And it's like, well, I'm just being honest that I use ChatGPT to help me wordsmith here.
Now, this paper in particular, the one that they showcased here, was about AI. So they kind of used ChatGPT as sort of like to help write it, but also as a focus of it.
Which seems reasonable versus the knee-jerk scientist response of, no, you can't list GPT as an author.
Maybe we change the research paper format, whatever they use for their particular field, and make it so it's like you have to have another byline for artificial intelligence aids.
Yeah, that would probably take a very long time. I imagine those standards are...
They're very rigid, like MLA, Chicago,
yeah.
all that. I don't know what they use for this, but...
Yeah. Also, if you do a peer review, do you have to let the other AI review the paper?
Yeah.
When the AIs get into an argument, it's like, this is not accurate.
I could totally see Microsoft's version and Google's version disagreeing on some minor point, and it's like, no, we can't publish this paper. And the AI image creation stuff is a battlefield at this point. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make money from it, but more importantly, to not let somebody else make money off of their work. And it's just a mess.
Getty Images is suing the creators of AI art tool Stable Diffusion for scraping its content.
A lot of artists also working on this.
These images are a bit of a smoking gun. They have the watermark, just like, poorly, because it's seeing so many instances of this watermark.
This happens with digital artists quite a bit too. You can still see their signature, like in the work that it creates.
And you can see how it sort of like scrambles the numbers and the words on his jersey because it doesn't get enough examples of that, but it gets so many examples of Getty Images that you can still tell what that says.
Yeah.
But they say that the AI is consuming and using their product, but it's really just looking at it, right?
Right.
And we're allowed to go to Getty Images and look at their products.
Yeah.
That's free.
If you see a Getty image and are inspired by it to do something else vaguely similar, that is okay under current copyright law.
For a human.
For a human.
Yeah.
But should we ban the robots from doing that? That's a difficult question.
I think that we should only ban the robots from doing that if Disney is...
just any way to get at Disney.
We can't create laws like that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just not fair because eventually if you have no reason to you might have a personal reason for making it, but would you share any artwork at all if you know it can just be immediately stolen?
Disney already does that.
There's no value in it. But then...
outside of your own personal satisfaction. But then again, why would you share it online if you know someone's just going to immediately scrape it?
Disney.
Does that create, do we hit a wall where art never progresses beyond this point because there's no reason to make new art?
Disney.
The computer just keeps rehashing the old art.
I think that's what will happen. Or people will just not post it online.
Is that not what's happening now? We have Marvel movies. They just keep making the same movie
over
and over again.
What's your bling that you're fingering there? It looks fancy.
Oh, I was like, huh? It's a necklace. Sorry,
that's very elvish.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
It's kind of a Lord of the Rings vibe to that.
Lord of the Rings owns all things elvish under the new copyright.
It's a bad thing, I think. But
it would be nice if there was some sort of reasonable happy medium, but I fear that all of that has already escaped copyright law because you have really insane things like, the universe of Sherlock Holmes is only finally just now mostly exiting copyright. And so you can take the world of Sherlock Holmes and do interesting stuff with it a century later. And there's so much, there has to be some balance of having something be a part of your culture and having it inspire things and then maintaining absolute control over it.
Indie games, they go hard on the Cthulhu mythos because all of that is open now. But it kind of showcases, it's like, well, when everybody can do this, they do it kind of crappily. They don't really do good things with the story most of the time.
AI will make it less crappy, maybe, possibly.
I don't know
I
about
don't know
that.
about that.
But as you say, Krista, the artists themselves are definitely not happy about the situation because they're the big losers in all this. They don't really benefit much at all from AI.
At all, nothing at all, because they get their work taken and they get no money, no recognition, no referral.
And
As Disney does for the good ones.
and if they use it as a tool to make new art, now that art is in question of like who gets to use it, who owns it, can you monetize it? So this one's an obvious headline.
Artists file class action lawsuit against Stability AI, DeviantArt, and Midjourney. DeviantArt opted people into AI recognition without their consent.
As did Adobe.
Yes. So that's the big problem there.
Although Adobe backpedaled on that pretty hard.
DeviantArt does not want to back down. People have been bitching about that for a while.
Yeah, because if you as a human could look at a piece of art and be inspired by it to come up with something that's vaguely or stylistically similar, is that, if I said, let's do something on the wall in here in the style of Jackson Pollock, it's like, does he own or have an interest in everything that looks that way? Or a Warhol? Is Warhol still alive?
I think the issue is that it's literally copying it. Like we were talking about how like it's showing the Getty Images watermark. A lot of this AI art literally has the artist's signature, like just generated into the image.
It's not the actual artist's signature unless you only train it on that artist's
Well, that's
art.
what a lot of people do, though. They're like, I want this in the style of this particular DeviantArt artist. And then
bit
it
meta.
generates thousands of images. And it's like, well, now this artist's work is worthless.
You're going to have to, here's a pro artist tip, Chris, don't sign in the same spot every time.
Every time.
You're gonna have to sign with a holographic banana to make your whole artwork invisible.
Well, that's what people were like, I wouldn't even care as much if I could opt out of it. But DeviantArt wasn't allowing that for a long time.
Even if you can opt out of it, someone could upload your stuff somewhere else.
Somewhere else, right.
I mean, it is the old argument about like, once an image is on the internet,
It's there forever.
No one can control it at that point. As much as Getty Images tries, they can't really do it. Now here's a little bit of GPTception, right? ChatGPT writes an article, and then another website covers that article and lets ChatGPT write that article as well.
A tech news site has been using AI to write articles, so we did the same thing here on BuzzFeed News. Okay.
So yeah, they're out there. They're writing the articles.
Just like the artists, all those freelance writers,
CNET.
everyone's gone.
CNET was doing it with financial news, and the ones that they showcased here were like explanations of how crypto works and stuff like that, which I could see ChatGPT getting that horribly wrong.
Yes.
But they claim that the editor painstakingly went through and confirmed all the facts and the stories.
Oh, I'm sure that'll happen every time because they really care about
Just as soon as no one's
accuracy
paying
and not just
attention.
cutting costs.
That does raise an interesting dichotomy though, because what if you have an AI that's been trained on a bunch of people that have written books in copyright, and then you ask the AI questions where the answers come from those things? Is that similar to and different from the artistic part at the same time? Like with the AI will probably adopt the writing style of the people that it's trained with. If it's only trained on the works of
One person. right?
Asimov, it's going to sound like Asimov.
Well, they are good at emulating and repeating style, as you say, because when you only train them on research papers, they get really good at the research paper style, which can be a bit obtuse.
Yeah.
But even if you're trained, and it turns out that even if you're trained, can't tell the difference.
Research summaries written by AI fool scientists. Scientists cannot always differentiate between abstracts generated by the AI ChatGPT and those written by humans.
So that's just the abstract, but honestly, most people probably just read the abstract.
That's usually all that's free on a lot of those sites is the abstract.
So that's kind of terrifying. Adobe we talked about before. Adobe I don't think had commented on this at that time other than to say, yeah, we're not really doing that, blah, blah, blah. But now they've really backpedaled.
Adobe says it is not using your photos to train AI image generators.
For now. And then as soon as we can, we will start doing that.
It's very careful to say that it's not using it to train AI image generators, but you read the thing from Adobe and it makes it sound like maybe they're using it to train AI image compositors, where they're looking at what somebody does to remove something from the foreground or to remove something from the background, so that it could learn
and then develop a tool for it.
yeah. And it's like, what sort of copyright protections might exist on that?
See, my thing with that, like, it seems really stupid on the part of Adobe to do that kind of thing. It's like, aren't you, if you're feeding all this stuff to AI generators, aren't you eventually going to produce less artists who are less consumers of your product? Isn't that a little short-sighted?
Also, in the headline there, they said, I didn't read their exact quote, but it says they're not looking at your photos. But the story wasn't necessarily your photos. They were looking at like your brush strokes
Yeah.
and your clicks
Yeah.
and like trying to figure out how to, deal with all of that.
And they were very careful not to say that they're not using that to build an AI tool to use. See, that's kind of my point, is if you open the door with artistry, which admittedly I do see that like there is something there that maybe you could say there is harm occurring to artists, but you go all the way down to like the Amazon warehouse workers that are wearing the bracelets that are collecting the data of how they move their arms and how they do things. They're performing something. Could you say that's performance art? Their data is being collected and it is going to be used to train an AI to do stuff. What interest do they have in the value that brings to Amazon after the fact?
Is this how Amazon learns that the best possible warehouse worker is a former ballerina?
A dancer, yeah. No, they probably wouldn't like that because your movement wouldn't be efficient. It would look beautiful, but it wouldn't be efficient.
You're so limber and supple, then you don't get damaged as much by the
Dancers are very damaged.
So with that, but if artists end up having some sort of rights conferred to them, as like if Getty Images, if they win the lawsuit, does that also confer some rights to the Amazon warehouse workers that are having their, choreograph information collected?
Ideally, we just wouldn't have our information collected at all, but we're not going to live in that universe. So the only winning move is not to play.
There's no going back to that.
Yeah.
Disney's going to take what they want, and
you
you
have
can't
to start
stop
making
them.
real, like, non-digital art, and you can't have any sort of photographic evidence of it anymore. You paint it in your house, and you never let anyone see it unless they see it in person.
We need to start I need to go register a domain name that's like number of days elapsed since Disney paid the Star Wars book authors, where it's like, no, we bought the rights to the books. We didn't inherit the obligation to pay the authors.
We're never going to use them. I've heard a lot of people who are upset. They're like, there's a lot of really great Star Wars books, and they just threw all of that out and then just did their own thing.
Yeah. And it's like, they're still selling the books and collecting the royalties, but they're not paying the artists. And there's nothing you can do to stop Disney from doing that, it seems.
Well, images, AI is really good at images, shockingly good, and that's the problem, right? In terms of AI writing code, it has not been as good.
It's better than you might think, though.
But
for
it does
certain
a
things.
lot of impressive things, but it's wildly wrong enough that you can't depend on it. But that hasn't stopped them. They're looking at ways to just give it smaller bites so it can't be as wrong as often.
Can editing code feel more tactile, like painting with Photoshop brushes? We added a toolbox of brushes to our Visual Studio Code extension that can modify your code.
So they got, like, here's a great example. You've got, make it more readable. Now, that's certainly more readable, but amounts to the same thing. I guess that's a useful service.
Fun times.
And don't forget about our old AI technologies. Those are still around, and those are still cool. Remember deepfakes? What are we going to use deepfakes for?
For the election season next year, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, but before then, we can use it to pretend to care about things that we don't really care about.
Nvidia Broadcast can now deepfake your eyes, make you look at the camera. They demoed this at CES. There's a lot of mind-blowing stuff at CES, but it makes you look at your laptop webcam or your other webcam or whatever, even if you're looking away. And it's pretty convincing.
I think that's kind of funny, though, because I feel like staring directly into the camera is like one of the weirdest things
Yeah.
you can do. Like, it's very uncomfortable if someone stares at the camera the entire time,
Yeah.
unbroken.
We used to do that a lot when we first started doing this.
Yeah, I've looked at those videos
I don't know what to
before.
do.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, stop doing that. Don't look at them so much.
I can't get rid of this paywall, but I
Oh.
think you can read the friendly URL. The AI has conquered another game, and this one probably was a difficult one to do.
Cheaters hacked an AI bot to beat the Rocket League elite. Rocket League AI. AI League, go! First they came for StarCraft, and I said nothing, and then something Rocket League.
I like the description if you read, because it went up against a guy who was really good at Rocket League, and he was describing and he was like, at first, I thought this was a total noob. I thought the matchmaking was broken because he was just like driving up the wall, doing nothing. And I guess it was learning at the time. And then out of nowhere, he said it got the ball and just like flew to the other goal and scored. Like, didn't even bounce the ball, just like sort of perfectly carried it.
I never got good at flying in Rocket League. I could never get.
I remember playing Rocket League and feeling like, oh, I'm getting good at this game, and then seeing a YouTube video where a guy never touched the ground.
Yeah,
like, oh,
never mind. Yeah,
I'm going to stop playing now because
Yeah.
I'm never going to be this good.
time to go back to the indie roguelikes where I can play by myself. And the other way that AI, and in this case, actual robots are getting better is terrifying, because these robots, I feel, are moving closer and closer, and not even closer. They're here now. This robot could chase you down and kill you
Yeah.
with no trouble whatsoever. You would not be able to escape it.
Boston Dynamics' latest Atlas video demos a robot that can run, jump, and now grab and throw.
Look at its pincher claws. You know how fast that would rip your trachea out?
he's looking for the prize.
I was thinking about solving, the homelessness issues. Like, we could just have 12 of these build houses around the clock, and it would be pretty cheap.
Yeah, that's the reason we don't have housing for homeless people.
Yeah, you'd have to have those same 12 tear those houses down when they were completely like methed out and destroyed.
I'm just thinking like the will. It's not.
I really need the concrete houses. You can hose those out at least.
You think building houses is going to fix homelessness? You don't understand the homeless problem.
It would certainly help if there was more affordable housing.
It would bring rents down probably.
Well,
And automation in our cars, it's not there. But there is one industry that's had automation for a very long time, and now they're looking for fully autonomous, which is terrifying.
The register says, surely you can't be serious. Airbus close to landing fully automated passenger jets, and what is no doubt a reference to airplane, Don't Call Me Shirley.
Dragonfly. Now, the idea here at first, this is part of their sensing equipment that's mounted on the plane there, is not to make the planes fly themselves, but if the pilots were to become incapacitated,
The autopilot.
go ahead and let it land. However, let's think back to a couple of weeks ago when we talked about they want to shorten the number of pilots from 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So clearly they're depending on something like this.
It's because there's a pilot shortage, because they're paying pilots a lot of money, and they're looking at that and saying, ooh, pilots make a lot of money. We would like for pilots not to make quite as much money.
airlines really just looking to cut costs everywhere. Like we
always
can't
do.
upgrade the service. We can't pay our pilots. It's like, well, what the hell are you paying for?
I'm really waiting for the day where the only form of airline travel is they just inject you with something to make you unconscious, stick you in a box, and you fly cargo class.
the A-team method.
That's almost not the worst idea. Like,
You would have people who were addicted like Michael Jackson was. To
I like to fly. It's like, why? You're knocked out the whole time.
What do you call that affliction? Like the air boxer, the
How do you have 10 billion airline miles?
I just go to sleep in Tokyo and wake up in somewhere else.
And I was disappointed in this article. We were really lacking space stories this week. Not a lot going on in space, but the Washington Post via MSN brings us the plans that NASA has for the moon.
The moon beckons once again, and this time NASA wants to stay. They're talking about, of course, building a moon base, which we've covered many, many times before, but this is something somebody has written not as a result of any particular event that happened.
Also, more of
Filler.
a moon gas station at this point.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some Slim Jims there. Yeah.
Now that we know there's H2O somewhere up there, we've realized that we can break that down into fuel. And
If Buc-ee's is not talking to NASA HR about some kind of a deal, somebody's doing something
The
wrong.
Buc-ee's logo, but with a bubble
that would be
helmet.
perfect.
Yeah.
That would be perfect. But how much is if the burritos are, I think, $8 here, what does a moon burrito cost?
Oh, I got this egg salad sandwich, but it was $8,000.
It's like, oh, did you bring one of your children on the moon trip to trade us for a bag of jerky?
No, you have to have
Because
the NASA voucher, right? If you have the NASA voucher, they'll just write it off.
that's
But-
the Elon Musk tickets, company tickets. And we talked about this last week. Unfortunately, the Brits were not able to put one in the sky. We got a few more details Basically just a horrible fireball.
Virgin Orbit's failed rocket seen crashing back to Earth in fiery video, featured on this Gizmodo article.
Burned up in the atmosphere. All the satellites were catastrophically lost.
Turns out hucking stuff into orbit's hard.
As easy as old man Musk is making it seem, still tough. And moving on to the nonsense section, the whole idea of like when people question how I can question certain industries, like we're the only country that does this.
It's crazy to me that EU has outlawed this, but it's allowable here.
I take it back. We're not the only one. New Zealand also does it, but they're so in control that somehow they got this through. They got this to be available. Like why? It makes no sense.
70% of drugs advertised on TV are of quote unquote low therapeutic value, study finds. But that's not even the bombshell. The bombshell from this study is that drugs are replaced with newer versions of drugs that are only marginally better when the old versions could be made either cheaper or for free or by somebody else.
Generic
but there are regulatory hurdles in place to prevent anybody from doing that.
And
There's a whole plot line in the first season of House about that.
it also shows you how susceptible we are to advertising. Because when these commercials come out and they're like, talk to your doctor about XYZ, and then they follow that with a micro machine speed read of all the horrible things that it does to you, people still go to their doctor and they're like, hey, let's talk about that drug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I saw a TV advertisement that was, hey, are you suffering from a tick bite? Blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, is this something I need to ask my doctor about? My doctor probably would rightly be like, no, that's just nonsense. You shouldn't pay any attention to that.
Or the generic version works fine. You don't need to go to the one that's thousands of dollars.
A rare doctor would say that. An average doctor, I think, would be like, oh, yeah, the drug rep talked to me about that. Let's get you a demo.
You can see if a drug rep has talked to your doctor and like what they've done with them. There's a website for that. My little local hometown doctor had nothing on his.
What's the website?
I can't remember. I have to look it up again.
I went down the rabbit hole on that. Somebody on it, there was like a 4chan green text on the Elon Musk. You know, the Elon Musk weight loss drug that diabetics need, but now is in short supply because everybody's on blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. That was because of ad campaigns and like drug rep dollars and stuff advocating for off-label uses.
I'm sorry if you're diabetic and you're struggling with that right now.
But it's like, here's something that's legit good for this, but we need to sell it. And so it turns out that it also works well as a weight loss drug with no side effects.
That was the OxyContin. One of the biggest things that they ever did, the most successful things, was to actually get the label changed to say that, no, this is not just for like cancer patients. This is everyday pain.
Yeah. That's how, that money. So like the study here misses the mark in that it's like, it's TV advertising. It's like, no, that's just one branch of that evil, corrupt tree. The whole tree just goes all the way back to those kinds of things in general, which needs to go away.
And has insane power, which leads me to ask, too hot?
Yes.
No? All right.
I mean, no, we can kind of do the thing, but
I don't know.
I've got to wait. We can do it. It's fine.
Right.
The FDA advisors, I'm leaving out some words in this headline. The FDA advisors are angry and disappointed about early data about the thing that was presented for review, but they left out some data for last year. You should go read this because a lot of the people that are screeching about one way or the other, and it's like, oh, we can't have a coherent. The thing that drives me insane about this is we can't have a coherent conversation about this. And it's like, I have some concerns. It's like, oh no,
because it's a religion.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, I'm okay with what I did because that was what I did. But at the same time, it's like, this isn't a good look.
So the thing that they left out was that the updates that they wanted you to install actually in the data that was here, which wasn't like a huge data set. So maybe it meant something, maybe it didn't. But anyway, they hit it. It said there's no advantage to the update. Don't get the update.
Because there's already so many variants.
And so you can if you have the original, you don't need the new one, but that would be terrible for the bottom line.
It wasn't even that if you had, my takeaway on it was not even that if you had the original, you don't need the new one. It's that you had the original and now the original doesn't exist anymore. And what you need to be protected against, we haven't even built a thing for, even if it did work.
But we've got this new one. So go ahead and get that.
Which is really, really terrifying. It's really sort of bad. And like when they were looking for like the tick bite thing on mine, they were like, oh, you might be one of the people that has like weird side effects because the symptoms are kind of similar. And then they did the culture and they were like, oh, no, it's bacterial. Oh, good. There's something we can do here. But I feel like that they might have delayed giving me the antibiotics for the bacterial side of it because they were like, oh, maybe this is just, you know, something related to the thing because the symptoms were kind of similar.
And maybe because they've seen some of that before. Oh, we're in such dangerous territory. Now, with all that in mind, keep in mind that the same regulators that regulate that regulate this.
The first CRISPR gene editing meat is coming, and this is the CEO making it a sci-fi reality. This is we're inching closer to Centicow every year. It's fabulous. Of course, Centicow is not going to benefit me anymore at this point.
Oh, wow. What if we reach Centicow and you can't enjoy it?
I'm 85% sure I'm never going to be able to enjoy Centicow.
Oh, dark. So what they're talking about here is like, yeah, we're going to make the fake meat, but we need to actually change the structure, the genetic structure of the fake meat to make it more meatish.
More delicious.
To make it more meatish. Not the production method. It's like, we're not altering the DNA in order to be able to just grow a cow leg out of a petri dish. We're going to make this other thing that's easier to grow in a vat more meat-like, which is perhaps even darker than Centicow.
And that's all being sold to us as a way to save the environment. But a lot of things are being sold to you as a way to save the environment that ain't saving the environment.
Revealed more than 90% of the rainforest carbon offsets by the biggest provider are worthless, an analysis
Here's
shows.
an idea. Maybe just don't buy stuff as often. Don't consume as much.
But then the whole economy breaks down.
Yeah, they'll never say that because they're afraid of that, but
Can we return?
stop buying as much crap.
Can we return to a situation where things are way less complicated and we can get like standard parts for things and maintain them and blah,
Absolutely
blah, blah?
not. Never.
Store.level1text.com.
Disney, Shell, Gucci, and other corporations bought carbon credits. And when people started actually like looking into what was actually happening in the places, so the whole idea is like you pay us and we protect this portion of the rainforest from the destruction that would come from them, you know, like actually doing the thing. No, it wasn't actually happening. They weren't doing anything. They were just selling imaginary credits. These companies probably knew that and didn't care.
It's
because,
greenwashing. Yeah,
they
it's
still
a
get
marketing thing.
They still get the ESG rating for it, and everybody's happy except for the rainforest.
H&M is big about that too. They talk about it like, oh, we really care, but then they produce so much fashion waste.
I mean, they are paying money, but it's not helping anything.
Right.
It's just
It's probably a charity they own, so they get a tax write-off.
Do you think we've advanced as a society enough to the point where, you know how we have folks that work on open source stuff because they genuinely want to make the world a better place with software, that we could do that with common household things like appliances? Because we're kind of to a point with 3D printing and some of that kind of stuff. What if we had an open source, you know, washing machine design and an open source, you know, clothes dryer?
they would have to be so beyond corruption for Samsung not to come around and be like, hey, I got a job for you. I got a bunch of money for you. And all you got to do is just stop doing that.
I mean, it's like you get a generic motor and it's like, oh, the washing machine and the dryer have the same motor that turns the thing you put your clothes in. What a level of standardization and amazingness.
Or, hear me out, for some certain things, like, you don't always have to use your dryer. You could just air dry it.
That's madness. We can't go back to the Stone Age, Kristen.
But that would be cool. It's like you have all these, it doesn't even have to be a new design. You could go back to, you know, like something that's the patent has expired. Sunbeam has this amazing toaster.
What about the Steam Guard wrinkle protection?
I don't think you need the Steam Guard wrinkle protection, and if you do, you can just make that Arduino add-on for your dryer. It's probably
Maybe,
fine.
no, we did do the social media campaign, wrinkle your clothes for the environment.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, then we sell the strings to make your laundry room have a
And
hanger.
then Gucci sells pre-wrinkled
Clothes, yeah, and then
Once again, the geek will inherit the earth in another way, and it's like, oh, I've always been, not pressing my clothes.
Yeah.
Show up in a super wrinkly T-shirt.
It's really going to be the decade of the introvert. It's like, yeah, we want you, don't ever talk to anybody or leave your house, and always be in rumpled clothing.
That's not a strong smell of BO. That's a strong smell of environmental responsibility.
Now, the hippies have always stank.
Yeah.
And, reading this article, it's like, wow, this is really hopeful, but the timing is terrible because it's like, well, eggs are now impossible to get. Like, eggs are going to save us, and now we got no eggs.
99% efficiency. Princeton engineers have developed a new way to remove microplastics from water. It turns out it's egg plasma or egg plasmum. Ectoplasm?
Just in time, the avian flu rears its ugly head.
Well, can we not use the culled eggs for this? Because this seems like an industrial
That's
purpose.
true. We're not eating them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But we're culling them before they lay the eggs.
They lay the eggs.
Are we going to have like a bunch of flu-ridden birds somewhere just making plastic?
No, because they.
Seems like that would breed a superbug of some sort.
That's the fear right now. We have a story about that in a minute.
So this guy figured out, like, he was eating breakfast, and he was like, I bet if I use some of this stuff for a filter, I could filter out stuff. I don't know how I got that idea. So they tested a bunch of it, and most of the foods could not do that. Bread, he thought bread was going to do it. Turns out eggs, egg whites in particular, once you roast them at 700 degrees, become like a form of carbon that you can filter stuff through.
I wonder. So a lot of times in like vegetarian recipes, people will recommend aquafaba from chickpeas as like a substitute for egg. I wonder if you could use that, if it would have the same properties, or if it's just.
Are chickpeas bad for the environment or something? Is that like palm oil?
I'm just thinking like to get around the whole we need a lot of eggs for this problem.
And I don't think the seafood that we eat is sourced from our own waterways, is it?
It depends on where you
most
go.
part.
There's some like local restaurants that get like catfish and stuff from local Kentucky rivers.
It's probably
Yeah, I thought a lot of stuff came from the mouth of the Mississippi River like that.
maybe slow down on the seafood purchases then.
Eating one fish from U.S. lakes or rivers likened to drinking a month's worth of contaminated water.
There's actually, so I don't know about every other state, but like Kentucky, the Fish and Wildlife, they have a page on their website that's like, here's the recommended amount of fish you can eat if you fished it from these waterways in Kentucky. And like if you're pregnant or elderly, it's like
None.
1. Yeah.
I imagine that now that our rivers are generally much lower than they have been, that's got to
that's
concentrate the
bad.
problem, right?
Yeah.
We also have a serious problem with cadmium and mercury in this area.
Yeah.
Because industry.
You think the fish are just constantly in misery? Do they know?
They're probably evolving to deal with it. But that doesn't mean that we can.
We are evolving to deal with it. Yeah.
Well, lab-grown meat, obviously, we've done that.
This was a big part of the World Economic Forum, as we were discussing on the stream.
Yeah, and it turns out that anything that has to be grown and live, we must not eat it. We must only create artificial foods.
Lab-grown alternatives aim to cut palm oil dependence. The alternative headline for Level 1 fans is Syntacow comes to palm oil development.
This is the thing with like all the fake meats and stuff. And it's like, can we just not develop recipes that are good without meat? Because that's what I'd prefer to eat.
Syntacow is not dark enough. It must be the Syntacow tears are also repurposed as this artificial oil.
40% of the world's oil is palm oil. Palm oil is a fairly low PUFA oil. So I love that. Palm kernel is even better. But it's not great for the rainforests.
Or the orangutans.
The stuff that's going on. Those palm trees, they tend to slash and burn to get to it. And that's not super sustainable. This is the carbon credits. Like they were supposed to stop this with those carbon credits. They did not.
They just pocketed that money.
Can't we just grow the oil in a lab? We can build some sort of Syntacow-like tree, perhaps?
Well, that's what they want to try.
The problem is that for Syntacow to work, the cow has to suffer just unimaginably, and we haven't figured out how to make trees to suffer unimaginably yet.
We also haven't got that lower than the cost of real meat or oil.
Yeah.
So, obviously, not going to work. In these inflationary times, you can't be spending more on your meats and oils. They're already ridiculous. This was great, though, because it is more and more often we are reminded that we're at the mercy of nature. Mm-hmm. There is no level of preparation that can stop the horrors.
You aren't outside of nature. You are part of nature.
Yeah, and being dragged along. You're not in control. We think we control the earth. Nah, not so much. But thanks to lasers, maybe one less threat.
High-powered lasers can be used to steer lightning strikes. The technology could protect rocket launch pads and power plants. And if you're in Soviet Russia, maybe it's a new threat from the West.
I think everything is a threat from the West if you're in Russia.
I don't know how this detects. It's got to be lightning fast, right?
Lightning fast.
What kind of processor is good enough to read an input and then, but what it does is it uses that laser to create plasma in the air as it burns, and that is conductive. So
you could probably just shoot a laser at clouds that are a high threat of lightning and just preemptively deal with it.
I wonder what that would do to the clouds, though.
It'll discharge them electrically.
I think you guys are really overlooking the fact that Picos Hank may do a video on this technology, and I'm very excited for it.
Excellent.
I don't think you can afford one of these lasers.
No. It's almost storm season, though. Here in a few months, we'll get his videos.
A laser.
Well, Krista, you are the gardener of the group.
Yes.
And you've spoken out against this in the past, but Yahoo News says that you are wrong. And I think the time has come for you to start pooping in your composter.
Human waste is safe for growing vegetables, research say. So are we talking about solid wastes?
Both.
So a lot of people pee in their compost pile to add nitrogen, and that's safe. A lot of people say for human waste, you need to let it break down for at least a year before it's safe.
There's for sure a process going on here. It's like we're not just squatting over the strawberries.
Yeah.
Here.
Don't just raw poop into your garden bed.
But they're saying that with the fertilizer shortage that we're experiencing, we should start saving up.
The future is fertile. Pee in your compost pile.
Isn't it also true that one of the reasons that human waste is bad is because there's a lot of drugs that just pass right through your system, what you don't use, and then that gets absorbed by things?
That is true, and they did find some drugs.
Yeah.
I think they found like acetaminophen or something and some other kind of drug, but they said that it was really, really low
Trace
concentration.
amounts.
Oh, well.
I mean,
Like mercury.
a
That's fine.
lot of people also water their plants with like rain barrels. And in theory, there's a little bit of crap coming off your roof too, but like I think it's also been found like it's so minuscule, and if you need to use water, it's better to use rainwater than your city water.
Maybe you should drink the water and run it through yourself, then pee it back on it.
The human filter, if you will.
Pee is actually very high in nitrogen, which plants need. Don't pee directly on the plant because it'll kill it, but if you let it age a little bit.
Keep your pee jug.
Well, no, you put it in your pile because you need to keep your pile moist, so that way you have that like breakdown happening, and some people will pee on it to add the moisture, but also add that nitrogen.
Once again, the shut-in 4chan users ahead of the curve.
Yeah, collapse early and avoid the rush.
That could be like a new business model for them, providing pee jugs.
I mean, everybody pees, so it's
But not everybody's willing to collect it in their home.
That's true.
We had the what was it like back during the fall? We had the big UFO.
That turned out to be a nothing burger.
They released it, and there was just more questions. Nothing got answered. But it turns out that they may have broken a dam open there of people willing to submit UFO reports.
New UFO report shows hundreds more incidents than previously thought that are actually being investigated. So that list of hundreds of events, that's already been culled from thousands of events. And there's a few hundred that are unexplainable. Now, no doubt that a significant percentage of these is related to terrestrial drone activity, where it's like, we don't know what this is. There are some really interesting cases of, this doesn't look like it behaves according to the known laws of physics. Is it some sort of optical experiment? What's going on?
They said no evidence of aliens, obviously, but some unexplained stuff.
Fun times.
Probably
that's the
military tech from some other nation.
Let's hope it's ours.
And people just there was a bureaucratic mix-up where they didn't mention it.
Was the Navy thing a psyop? Remember we had the Navy thing where it was like some dude from the Navy, and then there was the patent, and the patent examiner came forward and said, we will not grant a patent on this because it's this, you can't build this. And then they took them out and said, oh, I guess you can. And then the patent was granted. Like there was no mention of that here. Why?
Also remember the thing that was supposed to rotate and throw things into space?
Oh,
I
yeah.
never heard of that.
The pizza.
That did
They
not
got
happen.
their venture capitalist money, and
they disappeared.
They've retired to the Bahamas. Oh no, we put it all in FTX. What have we done? No.
And things are spiraling downward in all aspects of our economy, and you can see it everywhere in the world. It's nothing as convenient as it used to be, but you should resist the urge to be mean to the people who are working those jobs. Really, really think about that.
The CBS News headline is "No evidence of Taco Bell employees putting rat poison in Colorado man's food," police say. This is changed from the earlier headline, which was, dude hospitalized because of apparent rat poisoning from Taco Bell. But it turns out that guy may have just been a really, really sour customer or something.
Well, I think he was poisoned. I think the hospital signed off on the fact that, you were poisoned. So here, but the timeline is very suspicious because what happened is he showed up and it turns out he was one of these guys where like they knew him. Yeah. He was always been a problem. Those are people, you see him on the street or whatever over and over. And it's like, that person's a problem. So he attacked the drink machine because he was complaining that something was empty in that or whatever. Then he was screaming at them and he demanded a free burrito.
And they gave it to him.
I think that might have been the hot burrito. But they've reviewed the cameras and they say that there's no evidence that the rat poison went in during the prep process.
Maybe he just makes bad decisions and got somewhere else. Yeah.
I mean, he makes some bad decisions for sure. And talk about bad decisions and talk about not taking responsibility for your own actions.
Good Lord.
I've been drunk once or twice around when we do the New Year's stuff, and I've never felt the need to do this.
Yeah, well, I've been very, very drunk. And even in my most drunken state, I knew that I shouldn't be driving. And unfortunately, this young lady did not feel that way.
Woman is suing a concert venue after getting drunk, so drunk that she blew up a home and caused $15 million in damages.
Now, here's the timeline. She was at a concert.
Righto.
She was drinking heavy. She gets kicked out of the concert for being drunk and disorderly. She immediately gets in her car.
As you do.
Oh.
She runs into this house, which I guess had like a propane tank or something. Whole thing explodes. The embers fall on the other houses in the neighborhood. The whole neighborhood burns. So her argument is this was, number one, the fault of the concert venue because they continued to serve her booze after she was clearly too intoxicated. Number two, they kicked her out without making sure that she had a ride home. Number three, they did not prevent her from getting in her car and driving it in such a drunken state.
That is not their responsibility.
According to her.
You could argue that like bartenders sometimes will say like, "Oh, I'm not serving you anymore if you're too drunk," but like the rest of it, no one made her drink and drive.
That's astonishing. It's the personal responsibility is just gone in our world.
I mean, I doubt she'll be rewarded for this. They will absolutely throw this out.
And hopefully she has to pay their court expenses. But here's the other amazing thing from this article. It was a Marilyn Manson concert. Marilyn Manson's still out there rocking.
I'm sure that it's personally Marilyn Manson's fault.
Yeah. I can't believe he made me go blow up a propane tank.
And this week we had the big World Economic Forum. Or was that last week?
That was last week.
I think it was last, yeah.
Either way, they had it, and it was a horrible thing. The dystopia coming out of that is just unparalleled.
The aforementioned Centecal and Centecal for palm oils.
Start growing your own food.
You'll eat bugs and like it. That came out of it.
John Kerry had a great moment where he was like, "What do we need to stop the climate change?" And he said money 7 times. It was like the developers, like he didn't know when to stop. He just kept money, 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 money. And I mean, that seems like the quiet part, right?
Well, then why not just the will to do it? Anti-consumerism.
Because that's not what he wants from you.
Open source washing machines.
But they shut down that town. The military comes in and blocks the roads. They had fingerprint scanners to get in and out. But that's not the only big change that happens at that town during the World Economic Forum.
Demand for escort services has rocketed during the World Economic Forum summit at Davos. Apparently, from 3 cities away, services were needed.
Heaven forbid you keep it in your pants for a week.
Look, if you're gonna save the world,
world elite,
you got to empty out the old the tank first. You got to have a clear head to think about the future of this earth. They pointed out that a lot of these girls. What they do is rather than like dress sexy for this crowd, they dress business.
Ugh.
And like they can sort of mix in with the crowd and not be noticed.
That makes you feel good if you are a woman in business who happens to be there. And it's like, oh,
Right,
what if you get
yeah.
mistaken for an escort?
I'm sure. How often does that happen?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And so they interviewed one girl and they talked about some averages. Her price, 700 euro for an hour, 2,500 for the night. But that's nothing to the kind of people that go here. That's just part of they probably expense that to their company. And cake in the conference room.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a tradition as old as the office itself. Anytime there's a birthday or a birth or something good happens, somebody brings in a cake to the conference room. It turns out that is
A
terrorism.
return to normal protein processing. Bringing cake to the office is as harmful as passive smoking, says Chair Food Standards Agency.
What this might be like a painful thing to ask, but what would the celebration meal be?
Ice cream cake.
if you weren't sick anymore?
Like if it gets the
Oh,
green
okay.
light to go back to meat and sugar and all that.
Ice cream cake with a steak and then some more ice cream cake.
You're gonna start the starter is
Yeah.
ice cream cake, then we move on to the steak. Yeah.
I don't agree with this because you can say no and avoid the cake. Whereas if someone is smoking near you, you're inhaling it.
This woman disagrees. She says that she cannot resist the cake. At home, she can make the decision not to bring the cake into the house. But once she sees the cake, she's just overwhelmed. And she has,
This is the UK, right? I thought it was the UK.
Yeah, sounds right.
oh, Sky News? Yeah,
Yeah.
the UK.
Yeah, I just don't know.
With smoking, like you say you have to have the cake, but you don't have to have the cake in the same way you have to have air.
Yeah.
Like
As someone that grew up in a smoking household, that was just,
Yeah.
that was rough.
Now,
miserable.
in this office, there are some terrible snacks.
There are.
Lots of terrible snacks. So is there a lawsuit coming here?
We get whatever snacks people want is in the cabinet. It's
Yeah.
like, I guess don't open the cabinet if you want to not.
So
know
yeah, don't
what's
go
in there.
down there.
That's the same as you holding me down by the throat and making me smoke a cigarette.
Obviously.
Over in India, they are, they're building up the manufacturing base, right? They're going to be China. Whatever's coming out of China goes to India. That is not going to be good for their environmental protections. And luckily, they have some air sensors to tell how bad the air pollution is. And lately, it's been real bad.
The Hindustan Times has the headline: the MPCB's response to the city's air crisis is to change where the monitors are so that they're in the cleanest parts of the city. Okay.
That doesn't seem like a good solution.
No. Well, it's even here when we were having the drought earlier this year. I remember Louisville had air quality alerts. It was like if you're elderly or a small child, don't go outside. It's like, oh,
Those fires, there was enough to blow those small particles.
Yeah.
Like you could go outside in your car. It's just like, oh, what happened here?
Nothing good. And this country has its own problems that are kind of papered over constantly. But this is the kind of thing where, what's the way out of this? I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
There is no solution to this.
Arizona town cut off from water and is using rain to flush its toilets.
Yikes.
They're in the desert. They were buying water from a neighboring town, you said? And,
Right. They had to deal with another town to pipe the water in. And the other town was like, listen, we just can't spare it.
I mean, the standards of living have to go down if you're going to live in a place like that. You got to think about how the natives did it.
This place seemed like they were so well off that everybody drinking bottled water is probably not a big deal, but the reality is there's not even enough rainwater to flush the toilets.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things you need water for.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And one guy,
Hygiene, yeah.
like you say, this seemed like a kind of a rich neighborhood. Those are like, McMansions that popped up in the desert. And he said he was putting in like a $20,000 barrel and gutter system to try and,
Is it legal to do that in Arizona?
I don't know.
I
but
wouldn't think so. Because I know in Kentucky they encourage you to save rainwater, but in a lot of these western states they don't.
But talk about doubling down. Now you got another $20,000 cost sunk in that house that might be worth zero.
You gotta
Yeah.
save the rainwater because the groundwater has much more mercury in it than the rainwater.
And our poor infrastructure in this country, it's aging, it's failing. People are shooting it for whatever reason. It's terrible. And the Army Corps of Engineers has come up with an adorable plan to make us more aware of that.
The Army Corps of Engineers has released a 2023 calendar of giant cats attacking infrastructure. The Photoshop skills here are somewhat lacking, but their heart's in the right place.
Look at him.
Cats are adorable.
That's really funny, though. I got to wonder, the conference room. It's like, we need to do a cat. It's a fundraiser, basically. We need to do a cat calendar. And it's like, with the Army Corps of Engineers, we don't have anything to do with that. And then whoever came up with the idea of cats, like giant cats attacking infrastructure, brilliant.
Give that person a raise.
Yeah.
Maybe there was one guy who was like, well, let's do all of these amazing projects that we've built over the years and show people what we've done. And then there was somebody who was like, we're going to have to add cats to that. Nobody cares about that.
The runner-up idea was working in trains, because everybody's crazy about trains, and they just couldn't figure out how to work in all the trains.
I love YouTube videos of model trains where cats are attacking them.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Or the cat emerges from the tunnel.
Or just lays on the track and lets the train hit it because they don't care. And, we're doing a lot to try to save the climate, Earth, whatever. And some of the ideas, like carbon credits
Is
that
this
don't
real?
exist,
This can't be real.
are worse than others.
The Fox News headline is Farmer speaks out against forcing cows to wear diapers to contain methane emissions. The farmer says, you've gone to the loony bin.
Is this the farmer just making up ideas?
I'm pretty sure that there was something you feed the cows and then they fart less.
It's not, no one is forcing her to do this. That is true.
Yeah.
But in France, Dannon, which I guess is the Dannon yogurt,
Yeah.
they have said that they might start doing this.
Here's the problem with that. Eventually, you have to take the diaper off. Where does the gas go?
I don't understand how, if it's gas,
That doesn't happen.
The diaper doesn't contain it.
but then even if it did, you would have to somehow, as you're taking it off, collect it.
Yeah, that's why I don't think this is real. I feel like the farmer saw a clickbait thing on Facebook and then freaked out.
We had the other article where they figured out how to reduce cow methane emissions with dietary changes. Was that not real? I don't understand.
They mostly eat grass. That's the thing. They're
This is the thing they linked to. This is another Fox News article, though. I'm trying to find a press release from the company. It doesn't look like they have that.
You know who doesn't burp and have methane problems? Sent-a-cow.
I got to think Syndical would have all sorts of digestive problems.
All of the environmental impact is up front before Sent-a-cow is synthesized.
Don't cows have
lithium batteries?
7 chambers in their stomach anyway? How many would Sent-a-cow have?
And they actually regurgitate. They'll eat it and then bring it back up and chew it.
Yeah.
So I mean, how are you going to stop all that
Yeah.
gas and stuff from coming out? Also, she mentions probably what's the biggest problem, and bad for the meat as well, is that she feeds her cows soybean oil refuse when she should be feeding her cows grass.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they'll fart a lot less if you're not feeding them poofas all day. FA Cup. Yeah, sporting event, some sort of soccer game.
Something, the sports ball.
Yeah.
Prankster disrupts the FA Cup coverage with noises. I don't know if I can say that anymore.
We've probably already been demonetized for some random word.
It turns out a YouTube prankster hit a phone somewhere on set that would make noise. And everybody had
Look
a
at
laugh.
that phone. That's ancient.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to throw it away. So.
Right.
And the BBC said, lol, sorry.
They were upset about it, but the prankster was like, no, I'm not apologizing for that. That was a hell of a prank.
I thought the
I'd do it again.
The announcer liked it too. The announcer was like, hee hee hee. That's funny.
That little thing is adorable, but that's not what the story's about.
Oh.
This is about a dog which did something very dumb, but also very impressive. You think Rue could get up a tree?
No, absolutely not.
Dog stuck in tree rescued by firefighters after squirrel-chasing mishap. Look how far it made it up the
Oh
tree.
my goodness.
I mean, how did he do
That's
that?
so dogs sometimes will have a really high prey drive. I don't know what kind of dog that is, but terriers can be that way.
The owner said that despite the dog's enthusiasm, never came close to the squirrel. Squirrel was never endangered. Squirrel just jumped to another branch once the dog was stuck up there.
Oh.
He's like, what have I done? No.
And I thought this was the same story, but no. January 17th, Another Colorado library. Another one.
A second Colorado library has temporarily closed due to meth contamination.
Are we sure? Oh, never mind. Are we sure? And then I saw a second. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is a new instance.
Wow. What's happening in Colorado? They have so many beautiful mountains and people are getting high. You could literally be getting high in Colorado.
I bet those vistas are just amazing when you're on there.
That's true. Yeah, maybe you really go up the mountain. You hit that 14er a lot harder when you're on meth.
And the UN passes leadership year after year, or how many years is it? They cycle it. You get a leadership time. Right now, the UAE is in the leadership role, so they get to appoint the overseer of climate talks. That shows someone very interesting.
John Kerry backs the UAE appointment of an oil chief to oversee UN climate talks. Well, we're doomed.
These people suck.
Any of those UFOs that are visiting the planet, they're just here because they know what's coming and they know it won't be long.
Now, do you think that Arab oil has contributed to the climate problem at all?
No.
Too hot? We already talked about this on the podcast.
We did talk about it on the podcast. I would just skip
You
it.
gonna skip that one? All right.
Yeah.
Check the one tab if you're curious. This article was insane because of her history. That's just amazing.
Florida woman pulled from storm drain for the third time in 2 years. She was swimming along, and then the police were like, "Hey, are you in distress? Are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine." And they're like, will you come to the shore? We want to talk to you." So she swam into the storm drain.
And she has a history of always fleeing to the nearest storm drain when threatened. What do you think causes that?
Mental illness.
I mean, obviously mental illness, but why is the storm drain so
alluring? I feel like I'd be
safe for
scared.
her?
Yeah.
I watched the guy post 10 on YouTube. He cleans culverts out.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And he's got millions and millions of subscribers. He is now camping in the culverts.
What happens if it rains?
Well, no, it's inside the.
Oh, okay.
Well, if there was enough water running.
Yeah.
But he takes a board and lays it across so that he's over the water.
Oh.
And then he cuts it in half so he can slide it and then use the water.
Huh.
But those things are teeming with black widows.
Ooh.
Interesting.
And he sleeps in there.
Not with a bivvy or anything?
That seems like that would end badly.
Like a bug bivvy?
He's got he kind of builds his own thing. You should watch it. It's fascinating.
Ooh.
He's really he took his YouTube fame from culverts and now he's just started camping in bizarre places. Like that's his
Like
new
stealth
thing.
camping? Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I wonder, maybe if we're thinking of the same. I saw a guy like that who just camped on the side of a road.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He's into that kind of thing. And we talked about the chickens, the poor chickens. If you're trying to buy eggs right now, forget it. And once we
you can buy them, but they're expensive.
Yeah, and once we start using them to filter water, you're never going to be able to get them again. But it turns out the chickens are not the only threatened species.
Highly contagious strain of avian flu detected in 3 Montana grizzlies.
And they did have to be put down. This is the first time they've seen them jump to bears, which is a little scary.
Yikes. And we don't have a lot of bears.
No.
Like one bear will take up a lot of area just to feed itself.
They think that it probably got it from eating an infected bird. But yeah, that's not good to see it jumping to more mammals. Because we're mammals.
No. Oh, if only we had some sort of extreme weather event to cap off the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we certainly have had a lot of those, haven't we? I'm getting real tired of extreme weather events, but
Unprecedented times.
Your poor
Yeah.
air conditioning.
apparently it's not something that's going away.
El Nino.
Oh, sorry. El Nino event is coming in 2023. What does that mean for our forecast? We've been in a 3-year-long El Nino event, which means
extreme weather.
that it's a colder pattern and wetter typically for the U.S. With El Nino, that means it will be much hotter. So you thought this winter was mild so far?
Wait till next year.
Yeah, wait till next year's winter.
Well, mild winters I'm not worried about. It's that baking
summer.
heat wave in the summer where my poor HVAC just cannot keep up.
Or a summer as dry as this past summer. That was bad.
Yeah.
I saved a lot of money on lawn care though. Because a lot of times it's like, well, it's just basically powder. Don't mow it.
You should do a wildflower meadow in your yard so you have to mow it.
My neighbors would love
With the
that.
natural fertilizer.
The old man who mows his lawn every other day, that would drive him out of his mind. Which
Well, you
actually would
should
be
do
fun.
it. Yeah, and then it'll attract wildlife and birds, and your cats will love to watch that.
Then I can get some bees. And then this is like a trigger warning for me. I hate this so much. Growing up in Eastern Kentucky, the big thing was like every inch
Grandkid.
of surface had to be a picture. And then you had all the little tchotchkes and stuff like laying around everywhere. Like if you knock something over, it's 20 minutes of putting it back together. I hate that. My house has nothing in it. It is absolutely barren, and that's the way that it should be.
Embrace cluttercore, a way to show off all your treasures in a chic way. I want to do this with all the technology.
This is a design trend, an interior design trend that started like early like 2022 and is getting mainstream enough that there's articles about it now.
How do you ever clean that counter?
You don't. That's the beautiful part.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Also, there's a house for sale that you know the NFT house. It's like filled with bored apes and all that kind of stuff. That house is not selling. No one wants that, and that is like peak cluttercore.
This is more elegant, but it's still ridiculous.
Yeah, there reaches a point where it's like I can't easily clean this.
See though, no, wait, go back. So I like it, like as a kitchen trend, I kind of like this. It's like, oh, we don't have cabinets, blah, blah. I see that as a lot more functional and flexible because oftentimes with cabinets, you kind of struggle. There's a lot of wasted space in the cabinets, whereas you can mix things a little bit more that way. But that doesn't work for me, even though I, admittedly super cluttercore, because it's so hard to get plates and stuff out. Like, there's so much crap there.
Yeah, you have to move all the plants before you can access your plates.
And all of those are right side up.
Yeah.
Which means the dust is just going to settle.
Yeah,
in.
you don't want that.
This is insane.
Now, the shelving, I was at somebody's house that had shelving like this, and they had like the old school wire dish racks on their shelf, and so they had all their dishes sideways, and it was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Because you could put your plates up there to dry because it had the little doily thing underneath it, and the dust won't settle on them, and they're accessible, and there's nothing on top of them, and you don't make any noise when you take a dish.
For stuff that you use often, I think those kind of shelves are good.
Here's the revolution, right? And you've kind of talked about this, but let's take it to the next step. Dishwashers mounted as cabinets.
I would just be okay with 2 regular dishwashers. I mean,
I think that's insanity. Every time you talk about, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
That's
the depth is, it's the dual dishwasher thing's catching on though, because now there's a couple manufacturers that are making a dishwasher size thing that has 2 drawers that are independent dishwashers. So it's a dishwasher size dishwasher that has 2 separate compartments.
So you can just rotate and never have to take your dishes out of the dishwasher.
Right. Yeah.
you realize that once the West runs completely out of water, the dishwasher is going to be outlawed.
Yeah. I do think actually though, I don't know if this is accurate now, but like there was a study done a few years ago that dishwashers actually are more efficient than washing by hand.
I can see that, yeah.
Because you have to rinse each dish.
Yeah, because rinsing takes forever to get all the soap out of it.
Yeah.
I often wonder about like Pioneer people. How do they ever deal with that?
You probably,
They just didn't clean the dish.
yeah, or like you cleaned it, but probably not, like you didn't rinse it very well.
You just wipe it with a rag.
But once you get the soap in it,
No soap.
the
Yeah, they
water-
might not have used like actual.
I guess they were like cast iron.
Yeah, and they probably didn't. And for stuff that wasn't cast iron, like they didn't have liquid dish soap. They probably just rinsed it off. And
And they died of dysentery at a rapid rate.
I was thinking, once we get to the point where Centicow is common, what if your household dishwasher is a living creature that just licks the dish clean?
that's rude.
Like
That's rude, cricket.
Just get a goat.
Like the Flintstones.
When we when I put dishes in the dishwasher, Rune Cricket come running because they want to like lick all the plates before I put them up.
What if instead of that, we just let poor people lick our dishes to survive?
Oh, wow, breathtaking. When are you starting a startup?
I want to be at the WEF next time
What if
presenting that idea.
what if your house has separate living compartments separated only by a thin cage, and it's like you pass the dish to the homeless person and then they pass back the clean dish?
Oh, that actually was a thing. Remember, they had
Yeah.
servants' quarters,
In exchange for cleaning the dishes, they get, somewhere that's not as cold
housing.
to stay.
Yeah,
And all of their waste goes into the composter.
Yeah.
So we
And because they're trapped in your house, you know that they're clean and free of drugs.
they're never allowed to leave.
except for the drugs you give them to keep them docile.
Oh.
That is 1 hour and 4 minutes.
What an amazing
Ooh.
darkness. Makes up for Monday.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Share
next
these
week.
links with your friends.
Bye.